3 people dead, 1 family destroyed. The killer? Just 15 years old. By the time police burst through that door, it was already too late. A mother lay lifeless. Her 13-year-old daughter, gone. Her 9-year-old son, murdered in cold blood. And standing in the center of it all, a teenage boy with a gun. But here's what makes this case truly chilling. This massacre began with something as simple as a breakup. A teenage romance that ended and triggered an unthinkable tragedy. Before we go any further, welcome to Mysterious Crime Chronicle. My mom and I made a bet that I couldn't reach 500 subscribers. Help me win this bet and surprise her by hitting that subscribe button right now. And comment below where you're watching from. Has anything like this ever happened in your town? Let's talk about it. Because what you're about to hear will shake you. The most disturbing part of this case isn't just who died that night. It's who was supposed to be the real target. And why no one saw it coming. This is the Odessa family murders. And this is how 2 teens in love triggered a tragedy that no one could have imagined. Now, you might be thinking this was just another senseless act of violence. Random, chaotic, wrong place, wrong time. This wasn't random violence. It wasn't a robbery. It wasn't even a crime of opportunity. It was personal, devastatingly personal. And that's exactly what makes it so hard to understand. Because here's the part that doesn't make sense. The 3 people who died that night, they weren't supposed to die at all. The suspect, we'll call him Alexei, is 15 years old, a 9th grader. His ex-girlfriend, the one who broke up with him just 3 days before this happened, was inside that apartment when he arrived. She was there during the entire attack, hiding, listening to the gunshots, listening to her family scream. And somehow, she walked out alive. So let's talk about who did die. Maria Petrova, 38 years old. A single mother raising 3 kids on her own in Odessa's Silverovsky district. She worked as a cashier during the day and cleaned offices at night, just to keep the rent paid. Friends say she was the kind of woman who'd give you her last 100 hryvnias if you needed it. Anastasia, 13, Maria's oldest daughter. She loved sketching fashion designs in her notebooks during class. Her teachers said she had real talent. She wanted to move to Kiev someday and study at the National University of Technologies and Design. And then there was Dmitri, 9 years old, 4th grade. That night, he was in his room playing Minecraft on an old laptop his uncle had given him for his birthday. 3 people, 3 futures, gone in less than 4 minutes. But here's what investigators couldn't figure out at first. Alexei told them he went to that apartment to confront his ex-girlfriend. That was his plan. He even texted her earlier that day saying, "We need to talk. I'm coming over." So, why did he shoot her mother the moment the door opened? Why did he hunt down her younger siblings? And how did his ex-girlfriend survive when everyone around her was being executed one by one? The answer prosecutors are looking for isn't hidden in a confession. It's in the timeline. And once you see how that night unfolded, it becomes clear why they are pushing for the harshest sentence allowed under Ukrainian law. This began on March 14th, 2024, a Thursday night, just before 10 p.m., inside a Soviet-era apartment building on Akademika Korolova Street. Maria Petrova heard a knock at her door on the 5th floor. When she looked through the peephole, she saw a teenage boy, young, calm, familiar enough to seem harmless. She assumed he was one of her daughter's classmates. So she opened the door. Alexei Sokolov didn't say a word. He raised a TOZ-34 double-barrel hunting rifle and fired at point-blank range. The blast hit Maria in the chest, killing her instantly. She collapsed backward into the hallway before she could even scream. Her daughter Anastasia heard the shot and ran out of her bedroom. She saw her mother on the floor. She screamed. Alexei turned and fired again, striking her in the neck and shoulder. She collapsed near the kitchen doorway, barely conscious. 9-year-old Dmitri was still in his room. He heard the chaos, the screaming, his sister choking. Terrified, he crawled under his bed, hoping to hide. Alexei walked down the hallway, opened Dmitri's door, got down on his knees, and shot him under the bed. 3 shots, 3 victims, and still, Alexei hadn't found the person he came for. His ex-girlfriend, identified as Katerina, had heard the first gunshot and locked herself in the bathroom. She climbed into the bathtub, pulled the shower curtain closed, and stayed silent. Alexei searched the apartment for nearly 2 minutes. Bedrooms, kitchen, balcony. He even stood outside the bathroom door and listened. So why didn't he break it down? Investigators believe the answer isn't mercy. It's fear. Neighbors had finally called 102. Sirens were approaching. Alexei had less than 2 minutes before police arrived. So he made another choice. He left a rifle on the living room floor, climbed out a window onto the fire escape, and disappeared into the night. He was on the run for 6 hours. Police roadblocks went up. 9 units searched abandoned buildings. At 4:18 a.m., officers found him hiding in a storage shed behind his school. He didn't resist. According to police, his only words were, "I didn't finish what I came to do." That single sentence changed everything. Because in Ukraine, firearm ownership is tightly regulated. The rifle belonged to his father, a registered hunter who kept it locked in a safe. Alexei knew the combination. He took it while his parents slept. By morning, the safe was open, and 3 bodies were already at the morgue. Now Alexei faces 3 counts of premeditated murder under Article 115, Part 2 of Ukraine's Criminal Code, a charge that carries up to 15 years in a juvenile correctional colony. But this story didn't start with a gun. It started with a relationship, a teenage romance that turned into obsession. And when it ended, one person couldn't let go. Before we go any further, pause for a second. If you're still watching, it means the story has you, and that matters. We're close to 50 subscribers, but we need 500. If stories like this make you think, make you uncomfortable, make you reflect, this channel is for you. Hit subscribe. Comment where you're watching from. Even something simple like watching from Europe helps push this story to more people. Because engagement isn't just numbers. It's how these warnings reach someone before it's too late. Now let's go back. Back to when Alexei and Katerina first met. Because what looked like teenage love became something far more dangerous. And once you hear what happened next, you'll understand why this case still haunts everyone who touches it. She said something about that moment felt wrong. Deeply wrong. Rosa didn't know it then, but that teenage boy was about to commit one of the most horrific crimes in Odessa's recent history. And she was less than 60 seconds away from witnessing it. Something told her to stay where she was, to not go back to her apartment right away. So she did. She stood outside for a few minutes, watching her son play. And that decision, that instinct, may have saved their lives. Because at 5:45 p.m., gunshots rang out from Building C. 3 of them in rapid succession. Then silence. Then 3 more. Rosa grabbed her son and ran inside. She locked the door, and she called 911. According to the official report filed by the Odessa Police Department, officers were dispatched to 8740 Hunter Miller Way at 5:45 p.m. They arrived on scene at 5:54 p.m., 9 minutes later. When they reached apartment 214 on the 2nd floor, the door was partially open. They announced themselves. No response. They entered with weapons drawn. In the hallway, just inside the entrance, they found Jessica Rodriguez, 39 years old. She was lying on her back in a pool of blood, a single gunshot wound to the chest. The medical examiner would later confirm she died instantly. Jessica was a cashier at a local Dollar General on 42nd Street. She'd worked there for 6 years. Her co-workers said she was always smiling, always asking about their families. She had 3 kids and was raising them on her own after her husband left 5 years ago. She worked every shift she could get. Day shifts, night shifts, weekends. Because rent in Odessa isn't cheap, even for a place like the 87th Street Apartments. And she wanted to make sure her kids had what they needed. 10 feet away, near the kitchen doorway, officers found a 13-year-old girl, Jessica's daughter. She'd been shot in the neck and shoulder. She was still alive when they found her. Barely. Paramedics rushed her to Medical Center Hospital on West 4th Street. She died in the ambulance. At 6:12 p.m., she never regained consciousness. In the back bedroom, under a twin bed with Spider-Man sheets, they found a 9-year-old boy, Jessica's youngest son. He'd been shot in the head at close range. He was still holding his Nintendo Switch. The game was paused on Minecraft. 3 people, a mother and her 2 youngest children, dead in their own home, in a city where violent crime rates are actually lower than the national average. In an apartment complex where neighbors leave their doors unlocked and kids play outside until dark. This wasn't supposed to happen here. But here's what didn't make sense to investigators that night. Where was the shooter? And where was Jessica's oldest daughter, the 15-year-old who lived in the apartment? Officers cleared every room. The bathrooms, the closets, the balcony. They found evidence of the shooter. Spent shell casings on the floor, blood spatter on the walls, a broken lamp where someone had struggled. But no shooter, and no 4th family member. Then one of the officers heard something. A faint sound coming from the bathroom at the end of the hall. He approached carefully, knocked on the door. Police? Is anyone in there? Silence. He knocked again. If you're in there, you need to come out. You're safe now. Slowly. The door unlocked from the inside, and standing there, trembling, covered in her family's blood, was Jessica's 15-year-old daughter. She'd been hiding in the bathtub. She'd heard everything. The knocking, her mother opening the door, the first gunshot, her sister screaming, her little brother crying out for help, and then silence. Police took her outside, wrapped her in a blanket, started asking questions. And that's when they learned something that changed the entire investigation. Who did this? They asked her. She looked at them with hollow eyes and said 4 words that would send shockwaves through the community. It was my ex-boyfriend. Officers immediately radioed for backup. An APB all-points bulletin was issued across Ector County. Suspect, male, 15 years old, approximately 5 feet 10 inches, last seen wearing a dark hoodie and jeans, armed and dangerous. Every available unit was deployed. They set up roadblocks on Andrews Highway, on Loop 338, on every major road leading out of the city. Police Chief Mike Gerke held an emergency briefing at 6:30 p.m. This wasn't a random shooting. This was targeted, premeditated, and the suspect was still out there. At 6:26 p.m., 41 minutes after the first 911 call, officers spotted a teenager walking along Andrews Highway, about 2 miles from the apartment complex. He wasn't running. He wasn't hiding. He was just walking. They approached with weapons drawn, ordered him to get on the ground. He complied immediately, didn't resist, didn't say a word. When they searched him, they found no weapon, no phone, nothing but a student ID from Permian High School. They transported him to Odessa Police Department headquarters on East 2nd Street, placed him in an interrogation room, read him his rights, and then Chief Gerke himself sat down across from the boy and asked the question everyone was thinking. Why did you do it? What the boy said next would reveal the true motive behind the murders, and it would prove that this tragedy didn't start with a gunshot. It started weeks earlier, with a text message, a breakup, and an obsession that spiraled out of control. Before the interrogation ever began, there was a reminder of why this story matters. This channel isn't just about crime. It's about understanding how ordinary situations turn into irreversible tragedies. And the audience listening this far is part of that mission. Engagement isn't vanity. It's how these stories reach people who might recognize warning signs before it's too late. Because what happened to Jessica Rodriguez and her children did not begin with violence. It began with a teenage relationship. Jessica Rodriguez was never meant to die that day. Neither was her 13-year-old daughter. Neither was her 9-year-old son. None of them were part of the breakup. None of them were involved in the argument. And yet, they paid the price. Jessica was 39 years old, born and raised in Odessa, Texas. She worked relentlessly to provide for her children. Early mornings at the Dollar General on 42nd Street, double shifts when needed, and evening cleaning jobs downtown. She slept only a few hours most nights, but her kids never went without. Co-workers describe her as someone who noticed people, who truly listened, and who would give her last dollars to help someone else. She raised her children alone after their father left, never complaining, just doing what had to be done. Her 13-year-old daughter was an 8th grader at Bonham Middle School. Quiet, artistic, and deeply creative, she filled notebooks with fashion sketches, coats, dresses, shoes with intricate details. She dreamed of studying fashion design abroad one day. Her teachers said she had real talent. The morning she died, she had shown her art teacher a sketch of a long black winter coat with silver buttons. She was told she had a gift. She never got to finish that design. The youngest was 9 years old, a 4th grader at James R. Fannin Elementary. He loved Minecraft and spent hours building imaginary worlds on an old laptop from his uncle. His teacher said he was gentle and kind, the kind of child who shared his lunch, helped younger kids, and dreamed of becoming a video game designer. He had a loose tooth he was excited about, hoping it would fall out before Christmas, so the tooth fairy could visit. It never did. On December 9th, 2025, all of that ended. Earlier that day, a 15-year-old boy, Jessica's daughter's ex-boyfriend, came to the apartment. Jessica opened the door without hesitation. She trusted him. He had been inside their home before. But when she saw the gun, she tried to close the door. She didn't get the chance. She was shot first and collapsed in the hallway. Her daughter heard the gunshot and ran toward her mother, only to be shot as well. She was still alive when paramedics arrived and fought to survive, but she lost too much blood and died in the ambulance at 6:12 p.m. The 9-year-old heard the chaos and did what any terrified child would do. He hid under his bed, clutching his Nintendo Switch. Minecraft paused mid-build. The suspect found him and shot him there. 3 lives were taken in minutes. The person the suspect came for, the ex-girlfriend, wasn't even home. She arrived shortly after police lights, neighbors crying, and in reality she instantly understood. She survived by hiding in the bathroom, listening as her family was killed one by one. This wasn't about love. It wasn't about heartbreak. Investigators say it was rage. Control slipping away when a plan failed. A conscious decision, made again and again inside that apartment. The most haunting part is this. The victims were innocent bystanders. A mother who opened her door in trust. A teenage girl with dreams still forming. A little boy building worlds where anything felt possible. This story began with 2 teenagers who thought they were in love. It ended with an entire family erased. And what happened next, inside that interrogation room, would force everyone to rethink how dangerous obsession can become when rejection is treated like a threat. They met at Permian High School, same grade, a normal teenage relationship that started in early 2025. Walking to class together, sitting at lunch, texting nonstop. To everyone around them, it looked harmless until it wasn't. Friends say he became possessive, jealous. If she talked to another boy, he got angry if she didn't reply fast enough. He flooded her phone with messages, demanding to know where she was and who she was with. Eventually, she pulled away, and by late November, she ended it. He refused to accept that. After the breakup, he started showing up where he knew she'd be, texting, begging, promising to change. When she blocked him, the tone shifted. He began making vague threats to friends. One even warned her to be careful. But like most teenagers, she didn't think it was serious. Just drama. On December 9th, he made a decision. His original plan was to confront her after school, but sometime that afternoon he changed it. Instead, he went home, opened his father's gun safe, one he knew the combination to, and took a loaded handgun. He walked to her apartment. When he knocked, her mother, Jessica Rodriguez, opened the door. She trusted him. She had no reason not to. But the moment she saw the gun, she tried to close the door. She never got the chance. Jessica was shot first. Her 13-year-old daughter ran toward the noise and was killed next. The 9-year-old boy tried to hide under his bed. He didn't survive either. The girl he came for wasn't even home. She arrived minutes later to flashing lights, police tape, and a truth she would never escape. Her entire family was gone. Killed because she chose to walk away from a relationship. Investigators say it wasn't planned this way. It was rage, a plan collapsing, control slipping, and violence taking over. Police called it a deliberate choice, a cowardly act, and a tragedy that never should have happened. This story isn't about graphic details. It's about warning signs ignored, obsession mistaken for love, and how quickly a teenage breakup turned into an irreversible nightmare. One girl survived. 3 innocent people didn't. And an entire city is left asking the same question. Why? But you do need to understand what happened. Because this wasn't random. This wasn't a crime of passion where someone lost control for a few seconds. This was methodical, calculated, and that's what makes it so disturbing. The suspect entered the apartment at approximately 5:43 p.m. We know this because of the 911 call. A neighbor, Rosa, called police at 5:45 p.m. saying she heard gunshots, multiple gunshots, coming from Building C. Jessica Rodriguez was shot first, the moment she opened the door. Forensic evidence suggests she was standing in the doorway when the first shot was fired. She didn't have time to react, didn't have time to scream. The bullet hit her in the chest, collapsed her lung, severed major arteries. She was dead before she hit the floor. Her 13-year-old daughter was in her bedroom when she heard the shot. She came running down the hallway, saw her mother's body, saw the suspect standing there with the gun, and she screamed. That's when he shot her. Twice, once in the neck, once in the shoulder. She fell near the kitchen doorway. She tried to crawl, tried to get away, but she was losing too much blood, choking on it, drowning in it. She was still alive when police arrived, still breathing, barely. Paramedics loaded her into an ambulance, started CPR, tried to stop the bleeding, but her injuries were too severe. She died at 6:12 p.m., 27 minutes after she was shot. The 9-year-old boy was in his bedroom, playing Minecraft on his laptop. He had headphones on, so he didn't hear the first shot, didn't hear his mother collapse, didn't hear his sister scream. He heard the second shot, the one that hit his sister, and he knew something was wrong. He took off his headphones, listened, heard someone moving through the apartment, heavy footsteps coming toward his room, and he panicked. He crawled under his bed, pulled himself as far back against the wall as he could, made himself as small as possible, and he waited. The door to his room opened. Slowly, the suspect stood in the doorway, looked around, didn't see anyone at first. Then he knelt down, looked under the bed, and saw the boy. He shot him once, in the head, at close range. Death was instant. The boy never had a chance. Now here's the part that makes this even more heartbreaking. The ex-girlfriend, the person he came for, was in the apartment the entire time. She'd come home earlier than usual. Her mom had texted her asking her to pick up milk from the store on her way home. So she left school early, stopped at the corner store, and got back to the apartment around 5:30 p.m. She was in the bathroom, taking a shower. She had her music playing. She didn't hear the knock at the door, didn't hear the first gunshot, didn't hear her mother fall. She was completely unaware. It wasn't until the second gunshot, the one that hit her sister, that she realized something was wrong. She turned off the water, turned off the music, and listened. She heard her sister gasping for air, heard footsteps, heard a third gunshot from her brother's room, and she knew. She locked the bathroom door, climbed into the bathtub, pulled the shower curtain closed, and she waited, frozen, terrified, listening to her family die on the other side of that door. The suspect searched the apartment, checked the bedrooms, the kitchen, the living room. He knew she lived there. He knew she had to be somewhere, but he couldn't find her. He stood outside the bathroom door, tried the handle. It was locked. He could have kicked it in, could have shot through it, but he didn't, because at that moment, at 5:46 p.m., he heard something else. Sirens. Police were coming. Someone had called 911. He was out of time, so he made a decision. He left the gun on the living room floor, climbed out a window onto the fire escape, and ran. She stayed in that bathtub for another 8 minutes, even after she heard the sirens, even after she heard officers enter the apartment. She didn't move, didn't make a sound, because she wasn't sure if he was still there, if he was waiting for her, if the moment she opened that door would be the moment he finished what he came to do. It was an officer who finally found her. He knocked on the bathroom door, identified himself, told her she was safe, that she could come out, and slowly, shakily, she unlocked the door. She stepped out into the hallway and saw her mother's body, saw the blood, saw the paramedics working on her sister, and she collapsed. Officers caught her before she hit the ground, carried her outside, wrapped her in a blanket, and that's when she told them, "It was my ex-boyfriend." She survived that night physically unharmed. Not a scratch on her, but calling her a survivor feels wrong, because she lost everything. Her mother, her sister, her brother, her entire family, wiped out in less than 4 minutes. And she has to live with that, with the knowledge that they died because of her, because someone couldn't let her go. Police Chief Mike Gerke said something at the press conference that stuck with me. He said, "This young woman will carry this trauma for the rest of her life, and no amount of justice will bring her family back." He's right, because even when the suspect is convicted, even when he's sentenced, even when he spends the next 40 years behind bars, it won't change what happened. It won't bring Jessica back. It won't bring her daughter back. It won't bring her son back. She survived by staying silent, while losing nearly everything. But the night wasn't over, because while she was giving her statement to police, while she was describing what she heard from that bathtub, officers were already closing in on the suspect. They'd issued an APB, set up roadblocks, and at 6:26 p.m., they spotted him, walking along Andrews Highway, alone, like nothing had happened. Less than an hour after the first gunshot, he was found walking along Andrews Highway in Odessa, Texas. Not running, not hiding, just walking, like it was any ordinary Tuesday evening. At 6:26 p.m. on December 9th, 2025, police stopped a 15-year-old boy who had just destroyed an entire family. When officers ordered him to the ground, he complied without hesitation. No resistance, no emotion. On him, they found only a student ID from Permian High School and a house key. No weapon. When asked where the gun was, he calmly said he'd left it on the living room floor of the apartment, right where he dropped it after the final shot. Inside that apartment, 3 people were already dead. Jessica Rodriguez, a hard-working mother, her 13-year-old daughter, and her 9-year-old son, who had tried to hide under his bed when the gunfire started. None of them stood a chance. The next morning, Odessa police confirmed the unthinkable. A teenage breakup had ended in mass murder. The suspect was charged with capital murder of multiple persons, the most serious charge under Texas law. While adults convicted of this crime face death or life without parole, the suspect's age complicates everything. At just 15 years old, he cannot receive the death penalty. Instead, prosecutors must decide whether to try him as a juvenile or certify him as an adult, an outcome that could mean life in prison with parole eligibility only after 40 years. As the legal process unfolds, the city of Odessa mourns. Candlelight vigils fill the streets. Classmates, neighbors, and strangers gather to grieve lives taken too soon. Jessica's boyfriend pleads for justice. Teachers struggle to explain why 2 children won't be returning to class. Parents hold their kids tighter, wondering how something like this could happen so close to home. And the questions refuse to go away. How did a teenager access a handgun? Were there warning signs, jealousy, obsession, threats that were ignored? Could someone have intervened before it was too late? At its core, this tragedy is about more than a crime. It's about obsession mistaken for love. About how rage can hide behind a familiar face. About how quickly ordinary life can shatter. 3 lives ended in minutes. 1 survivor left to carry the weight forever. And a community searching for meaning in something that never should have happened. Some stories don't offer closure. They offer a warning. And Odessa will never forget this one.